Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks to everybody for joining me this afternoon. I really appreciate it. So we make portable NMR and MRI machines for industrial and healthcare applications. A bit more to it than that, but so we do seek safe harbor for forward-looking statements. As mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of Nanalysis Scientific. Where we're trading at today, we have a market cap of about 100 million. Issued and outstanding shares of about 94 million. There's no cheap paper out there. There are some warrants from a financing that we did recently that are well above current market price at about 70. We trade with an OTCQX listing and in Toronto and also in Frankfurt. We achieved 16 million in revenue in 2021, which was 100% year-over-year growth from the year before. And we stated publicly that we're going to stay on that trajectory. We have a publicly stated target of 35 million in revenue for 2022, and I have a lot of confidence that we're going to meet that. We are EBITDA positive also, so we have a grand tech vision, and we're into AI and all kinds of things, but we're not one of those sort of tech startups that's burning boatloads of cash. We used to be like that, but we're not anymore. So EBITDA positive and well capitalized at this point. Fabulous management team, including a CTO with really unique vision for the future of magnetic resonance. So our vision is to one day disrupt the MRI space and make it work the way it should work. And so in our opinion, the way it should work is any one of us here should be able to make an appointment at their local pharmacy, go down, sit in a nice chair, have an MRI of their prostate or their ovaries, should be connected to the clouds or by AI, and then you should get a pleasant message saying, nothing wrong with your prostate, no need to consult your doctor at this time. Please consider doing this again a year from now. Right? Or if you're playing football on a Friday night in East Texas and you get your bell rung, regardless of what kind of school you go to, you just should be able to go into your sporting facility, have an MRI of your brain, and determine conclusively if you've had a concussion or not. So that's where we're going. That's our grand vision. We're not there today, but we do have proven products in the marketplace. We have demonstrated explosive revenue growth, and we have an impressive suite of intellectual property. So this slide is just so we can kind of get calibrated on magnetic resonance and kind of establish a common frame of reference so that we can communicate effectively. So there's part of this story that everybody connects with, but then there's a twist, and it's the twist that makes us unique in the world. So first of all, down here at the bottom left, I've depicted a typical MRI machine in a hospital. They use superconducting magnets. They're very complicated to use. They require helium and liquid nitrogen fills to keep the superconducting magnets cool. They're very expensive. They're not portable in any sense of the word portable. So that's the part that everybody says, yeah, okay, I've seen those machines and I sort of get it. If you could make those better, great, it'd be a great company. So the twist is, and this is what most people don't know, is that these machines are also used for industrial analysis. In other words, not on human beings, but to analyze new drugs being developed, or petrochemicals, or advanced materials, or foodstuffs. They're configured a little bit differently when they're used for industrial applications, but it's the same superconducting magnet technology that require liquid helium fills and liquid nitrogen fills. They're massive things that are very complicated to use behind a gatekeeper. The user that wants to analyze a sample can't use them directly. They have to submit their sample. Almost like the old days in computing where you submitted your punch cards to the mainframe computer, and then 3 days back you got your results back. And so it's analogous to that. In this particular case, these gentlemen at the top here are putting their sample in the magnet system, which is this cylindrical system. And it's in a standard test tube, 7 inches tall, 5 millimeters diameter. And like I say, it's a new drug being developed or a foodstuff, and it's being imaged essentially to determine exactly what molecules are in that substance of interest. So what we've done is miniaturize this technology, which has established itself as the gold standard in the industry. In other words, you always want to use magnetic resonance to analyze your substance of interest if you could. So if you're not, it's because it's so expensive and in a fixed location that you can't bring it to where you need to measure it. But in terms of the information that's available from it, the quality of the information, it has established itself, like independent of us, as the gold standard for industrial analysis of all kinds. So not only have we miniaturized this technology, but we're democratizing it with regards to availability of machines, but also how data is interpreted. So that's what our company does. In terms of our specific business model, today it's largely capital equipment sales at high gross margins. So we're at 63% gross margins now, and we think we can push those in the direction of 75%. The products at the top left are sort of our flagship original products that are sold to big pharma, food, petrochemicals, government labs, a lot of universities for analyzing what molecules are in a substance of interest in any of those verticals. Now, the product on the top right is in fact an MRI product or a medical imaging product, but as you can tell from the figure, it's not the full system. So these products here are the full miniaturized magnetic resonance system, the miniaturized magnet, electronics, low-level software, and end-user software. This is just the electronics and the low-level software, the same electronics and low-level software that's in all of our products, but it's sold on an OEM basis to like tier 2 preclinical MRI companies like Behiso, a lot of organizations in China that are developing next generation MRI systems, for example, to detect smaller tumors earlier. So it is a medical imaging system. It's just sold on an OEM basis, and it's a component, the proprietary technology, but a component itself. We do have a distinct strategy to go towards our vision of having a full FDA-approved product for human medical imaging. That'll be application specific, so only for your arm or only for your head, and it'll be sort of prevention-centric. And so today we're building up a solid business foundation around the fact that the math and the physics is exactly the same for human medical imaging versus if it's used for industrial analysis. As part of our overall strategy, we're building out a full-blown operating company, so it's not just interesting technology and great products, but we also do installation and service of machines, and we're building out to have the capability to service MRI machines once we have a full-blown FDA-approved product. We'll see some interesting news in that regard in the near future. So I founded the company about 12 years ago. It's just been an absolutely fabulous journey during that time. We developed everything from scratch. So I hired some pretty smart people from Caltech and MIT and moved them to Calgary, and they're now a part of our corporate culture and so on, the core team, the original team that is still all together, by the way. It's one of the things that I'm most proud of. But as we went from, the IP strategy, the tech platform, the products, and so on, we layered on fabulously talented people to our team and got a product to market about five years ago, and they've been doing great guns since then. About 2.5 years ago, we had an opportunity to exit. It was a large NASDAQ-listed company that tried to develop a competing product but failed, and they tried to buy us. It wasn't the first time they tried to buy us, and we said no. It was mostly our angel investors that had backed us from the beginning and are still active in the company. Said, Sean, we don't want you to sell. We want you to create a perpetually independent world-class company. So it was sort of a real galvanizing, unifying moment for the shareholders, management, and board at that time. And that's when we went public. So in June of 2019, we went public in Toronto, and then shortly thereafter, our OTC listing. And one of the main reasons why we went public wasn't so much to raise money. We've raised plenty of money. We're backed by the largest angel investor group in our area with deep pockets. But it's because I wanted to execute an M&A strategy. So I wanted a PubCo, a vehicle in order to be able to do that. And so since we've gone public in June of 2019, we've done what we said we were going to do. We've not only grown our revenue and launched new products, but we've also acquired several companies that are in our space and complementary. Most recently, a company called Quad Systems based in Zurich. So really proud of the sort of group that we're putting together. I call it the Nanalysis Consortium. It's not a roll-up. It is different companies with different strategic capabilities, including not just technology, but also full-blown sales and service. So my vision is to have full-blown sales, channel management, and service in every major market in the world. Starting with the United States, which is our most important market, but also Europe and Latin America, Middle East, Asia, and so on. So it's just been a fabulous 10 years or so, but I think our next decade is going to be even better for shareholders and other stakeholders. All the technology is proprietary, so developed from scratch, patent protected, with an exciting patent pipeline. We have about 60 R&D scientists and engineers today that develop a massive amount of intellectual property every single day in the form of proprietary software, firmware, and hardware. And then just as importantly is proprietary manufacturing. So when I started this business, I didn't want to do a whole bunch of awesome innovation and then as soon as we're successful, have the technology ripped off in India or China. So part of our strategy was to develop proprietary manufacturing processes whereby we kept all the complexity in-house rather than pushing it out to vendors and outsourcers and so on. So if you got a hold of one of our products today in China, you took it apart, you had 10 PhDs that were smart enough to understand our patents that were working for you, you still wouldn't be able to reverse engineer the technology unless you knew exactly what we were doing in our proprietary manufacturing facility, which is in Calgary, Canada, where we're headquartered. We also have offices in Phoenix and in Strasbourg and in Zurich, Switzerland as well. So we're a global operating company. So just to sort of encapsulate our growth strategy, firstly, we'll always be an innovation company. We'll always be developing new technologies for different vertical markets and so on. But we'll combine that with industry partnerships. Some of these are publicly announced, whereby we white label our product, the partner adds a little bit of value, and then they take it deep into a particular vertical where they're already entrenched. And then we will continue to do M&A. So when I informed our board several years ago of my M&A strategy, at that time, there was 10 specific companies that I wanted to buy. We pulled the trigger on 4 of those, so there's still a few more to go. However, I do want to say that none of those will occur in 2022. We've done a little bit, a lot of M&A recently. One of them I did a little bit sooner than I would have liked, so I've told all key shareholders and so on that no more M&A for 2022. We're going to focus in on making manifest the value that we've created. But we will resume M&A in, let's say, second quarter of 2023. And in particular, that's going to be part of our strategy to have a full-blown FDA-approved human medical imaging product. That will be in conjunction with at least one for sure, but probably 2 acquisitions that are already in the process of the FDA approval. And by the way, we're working with these companies now on a contractual basis on specific customer projects. So it is part of our very specific strategy to one day have a full-blown FDA-approved product. I kind of alluded to what they might be. I want to emphasize that if you get like a catastrophic car accident in the middle of the night and you get rushed to a hospital, you won't be going into one of our machines. So it'll be part of the sort of next generation prevention-centric personalized healthcare system, kind of like the examples that I gave before. And we are working on that technology right now in a very active way. A lot of that activity is in the public domain, so you can scrutinize it more closely. And then sort of lastly, in terms of our overall strategy, how we communicate with the financial community is very important. And what you'll see over time is you'll see us use more and more the language of the human medical imaging side of the opportunity, because that's the side that connects with most people. But it's really important to doubly emphasize that the technology platform and the business foundation that we're building right now for magnetic resonance is applicable to the human medical imaging side. So everything we're doing right now is especially like reducing our costs and improving our profitability contribute to that the pursuit of our vision, as I mentioned before. And this is just a slide that I like to highlight what I refer to as the amplification of magnetic resonance. So the math and the physics of generating an image like this or a spectrum like this that a PhD in chemistry or a radiologist can understand is sort of the past. Where we're going with this, and this is what our customers are telling us, that in the future, it's not going to be the experts interpreting the data. It's going to be a mining technician, or it's going to be a prison official who detects some suspicious white powder and wants to know, is there fentanyl in this, or is there some designer opioid in this? So the output of these types of will change to something that looks more like this, or a message saying, nothing wrong with your prostate, need to consult your doctor, and so on. So really excited about these initiatives. Some of these we're doing ourselves, and others we're working on with partners. So the general space that we're in, I refer to as scientific instrumentation. Some people call it test and measurement. It's a great space to be in, especially since COVID. When I founded this company, nobody cared about scientific equipment or test and measurement, but people do today. Over $75 billion per year is spent on scientific instrumentation, and it's growing globally. That's not the addressable part of our opportunity right now, but we feel that with ongoing sort of miniaturization and democratization, we can increase the addressable part of this opportunity. We're about $3 billion today to about $10 billion, which is the TAM we'd like to get to. So, everything in the modern world is tested and measured. You can't innovate new products without test and measurement equipment. You can't deal with health and safety or quality control issues without test and measurement equipment. And you certainly can't efficiently manufacture your innovations without test and measurement equipment. So it's a great place to be in. In terms of the kinds of customers we sell to today, we sell to the biggest companies in the world like Pfizer, Eli Lilly, BASF, and Corning. But we also sell to tiny little 2-person biotech startups. We'll sell to the most famous universities in the world like Harvard, MIT, and Oxford. But we'll sell to like a little community college in rural Mississippi or rural India. And by the way, in those types of geographies, there are no liquid helium trucks driving around to fill superconducting magnets. So the cryogen-free aspect of our tech platform is an important growth driver for us. And then we sell to government labs all over the world like USGA and Health Canada and so on. We have a senior independent board of directors. A couple of examples are Werner Gartner, who's the chairman of our audit committee. He's a former CFO of a large NASDAQ-listed company called Novotel. Dr. Renee Lengenhager is actually a new addition to our company, and it's really sort of an exciting person to bring on board because he's the former president of the #1 company in the large manufacturer of magnetic resonance systems for industrial analysis called Bruker Corporation. So the #1 incumbent in the world he was president of that company, and then just recently became an investor and on our board of directors. So really proud of our board and our general team. So right now we're at about 165 employees and growing. We can start to do some ratio math. We'll do about 35 million this year. I think we can do 70 million. I've stated publicly that I think we can do 70 million in 2023. But just a fabulously talented, well-educated, and well-motivated team to help us make it a tremendous success. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions or engage in any kind of discussion. Thank you. Yes?
So what percentage of revenue right now is on the industrial side versus on the...
Yeah, it's roughly 85%, approximately. So like on the healthcare side, and I'm interpreting your question as medical imaging. Roughly 2 million is trailing 12 months medical imaging, and the rest of the let's say 60 million or more is on the industrial analysis side. If you want me to interpret healthcare as including selling to big pharma, then it's higher than that. Yes.
Thanks for the presentation, by the way.
My pleasure.
I guess I'm just kind of curious. I mean, why is it that the industrial applications require these huge devices? I mean, certainly if you're measuring something the size of a test tube, it should require some technological breakthrough to get something smaller than a device that can, contain a human being, right?
Yeah. Excellent question. So there are certainly smaller devices that are in fact used. So there's about a dozen different analytical techniques that exist. And at some point, if you go back 20 years, they were all very large machines that were eventually miniaturized. The reason why magnetic resonance was miniaturized last, and we're the world leader in that, is because of the magnet system. So other analytical techniques include things like lasers or other optical devices, of course, electronics, and those sort of, I'll call them enabling technologies, were miniaturized just as part of macro trends. Whereas there isn't really anything that's analogous to that when you're referring to magnets per se, especially strong magnets. So that's why it took longer to get those things miniaturized. But just to sort of like maybe complete the way I'd like to answer the question is, the magnetic resonance still provides the most information rich compared to any of those other techniques, and it's non-destructive. So non-destructive has two implications. One is reliability. So you can measure the exact same sample, right? Not just from the same batch, but the exact same sample over and over again. If you see something strange and you want more confidence, or you can put precious things in a magnetic resonance analyzer. You can put things that are alive in a magnetic resonance analyzer without worrying about safety issues. You're not altering the sample in any way. Whereas wet chemistry techniques or like things like mass spectroscopy, you're obliterating the sample. So you better have got it right. But like big pharma companies that are developing a new drug, they may have spent $100 million developing something new at some phase, and they have like a microgram of that precious compound. Something like that you want to put in a magnetic resonance analyzer, not a mass spec or some other technique that exists. Your hand's not operating with the stretching? Cool. Glad you're relaxed. Okay, so it seems like there's no other questions, so thank you again to everybody for joining us this afternoon.